r/ask Reddit. What is your hahaha? Oh wait, your serious moment? Some guys where I worked were planning to gang rape a girl in the parking lot when the shift ended. It wasn't a hilarious haha story even at first, but it really seemed like just really horribly inappropriate joking. It was a lunch table I sat down at during my break with guys around my age. At first I was just really uncomfortable and just tried to shut up and tune it out. But then they tried to include me and it escalated to them full out planning details and I was just about sick at the table. I was absolutely sure they were going to do it. So as soon as they were gone I went and told my dad, who was the safety guy at the plant. And he made sure cops were waiting for them in the parking lot and that girl had someone walking her to her car from then on. Whole thing was so ducked. Started a new job in a company where my boss worked in 2 different offices. He wrote himself a note on legal paper. He handed it to me and told me to fax it to the other office. Then he told me to call them and tell them to put it on his desk there so he could have it tomorrow when he arrived. I smiled because I thought he was playing a joke on the new guy. He was not. He loves faxing. When I was in high school I received a message over MSN from a buddy saying, "Mitch is dead." Thinking he got into trouble, I responded with, "Haha, what did he do?" It turns out, he had a brain aneurysm while driving home from school. I asked a co-worker with what his son's name was, and he answered Legolas. After 2 seconds of laughing I realized he wasn't laughing. His son is actually named Legolas. Someone once said to my friend, "Wait, you're Chinese? I always thought you were Asian." This was a few years ago. I forgot how the topic was brought up, but I clearly remember my older sister saying, "There aren't any modern buildings in Egypt, just pyramids." I came into my job and my boss was running a bit late for an unknown reason. Now, my boss is the type of person to joke about anything, no matter how serious it is, and will pull it off with a straight face. We never really take him seriously unless it is directly related to work. He comes in after being late and after a bit, just casually says our close co-worker had passed the previous night. I literally chuckled and said yeah, sure, and blew it off. He then said that he died from a heart attack before he was set to go out with his buddies during the evening. I then said, "Oh wait, are you actually serious?" And he almost started crying right there and said yes. I miss that man to this day. Really chill guy with some cool hobbies and volunteer work. I also feel so bad for my boss because they had known each other for years. Friend 1. Hey man, how come you decided to shave all your hair off? Friend 2. The chemo kind of decided for him. Friend 1. Duck off Joe. No, seriously though. How come? Me. Dot. He's actually not joking. Funniest shit that ever happened to me. Edit. I'm basically fine now. On close monitoring for the next few years but no further treatment. Thanks for asking. I once worked with a 50-some-year-old guy at my first job, who also happened to be a former crackhead. I added in that detail because his mannerisms and communication were clearly affected by his prior drug use, and he would sometimes laugh when he was telling serious stories. One day he was telling me a story about him accidentally setting fire to the woods when he was trying to cremate his dead pet frog when he was a little boy. I was laughing my ass off. Strangely so was he, until he looked me dead in the eye, with a face that's as serious as they get, and says, "I'm still not over it." I knew that look and knew he was actually being serious despite being in absolute hysterics with me while telling his story. I immediately felt like an a-hole. He was cool about it though, thankfully, lol. An intern at the vet I work at was a very sheltered Mormon. He came to work one day panicked. He had his first kiss the night before, asked the girl to marry him, and was concerned about his wedding date. He was absolutely convinced that he got her pregnant by kissing her. Absolutely convinced. It took me a long time to register what he was panicked about because it sounded so absurd. He'd delivered hundreds of kittens and puppies by then. I just thought he had also learned about human reproductive anatomy as well as animals by then. Someone wanted to euthanize their dog because when she was put outside alone in heat, she found a chihuahua and had ugly puppies that cost a breeding session. When we asked what that had to do with anything, he said the chihuahua's sperm is forever inside of her and can make those ugly puppies instead of the purebred. This dog was definitely not a purebred. When we said that things don't work that way, he said, "I know for a fact they do. That's why my daughter is half." N-word. N-word. Raped my wife back when she was in her 20s and his sperm stayed inside her until mine activated it. And we all know, sperm is more violent, so it won. He was serious. Waking up from general anesthesia, one of the nurses by my hospital bed gently informs me that my heart had stopped while I was under. I thought I was dreaming for a while and didn't take it seriously. Then my dad showed up and I saw the panic on his face. Then I phoned my mum and she had obviously been crying her eyes out. Then I took it seriously. When I learned I had totally forgotten to attend almost every single class in one of my college courses, I forgot I had enrolled in it. A classmate asked me, haha, where have you been? You're never there when the teacher's taking attendance. And I was like, haha, funny. So anyway, oh wait, duck. Luckily it was only about a month into the semester and I managed to bring it back up to a low B. Co-worker was telling me the world was flat. I'd never met a real flat earther in the wild before that. A random dude told me I'm girly because I know how to make scrambled eggs. Edit. Thanks for the gold. I guess you don't know how to make scrambled eggs. Kind stranger. New friend. I really shouldn't be doing so many extreme sports, but you gotta live your life, right? I'm gonna end up in a wheelchair by the time I'm 30. Me. I know, right? New friend. No, I mean really. I have a degenerative disease that's going to ruin my body by my 30s, so I'm trying to live my life now. My estranged auntie sending me a message to disinvite me to my sick but alive father's funeral because, wait for it, I had lunch with my little half brother and sister, and that is disrespectful to my father. My father never let me and half siblings meet before this lunch had occurred, and by meeting them, he disowned me. Literally. That's it. Just my ducked up family. I was on a Christian camping week here in the UK. There were some Americans with us. I found a stone on the beach with some great fossils in it and was showing it to some kids. One of the Americans started talking about how God had put fossils in the earth to mislead the vain who trusted their own observations rather than the Bible. I, naturally, thought he was joking and burst out laughing. And he was just so offended. He complained about me to the people running the camp, and they thought he was joking at first and laughed too. When I came back from lunch at work to find that one of the soft drink vendors, because at grocery stores they stock their own product, our Stokers don't, loaded the pallets wrong and a tower of pallets fell, spilling soda tea glass everywhere. The boss, store manager, just so happened to walk into the back room at the same time, looked at me, and was like, you saw it, you're cleaning it up. Thinking he was joking as he liked to do. I laughed it off. That's when he looked me dead in the eye and said, no, I mean you're really cleaning it up because that's your job. Insert me spending the rest of my shift cleaning it up and my department head constantly calling me over intercom and getting yelled at and then written up the very next day because I didn't do my duties in addition to cleaning up that epic mess. Getting fired later that year was one of the best things to happen to me. When my 60-year-old father told me he broke his hip paragliding into the roof of his hotel. Edit. I should add it was my parents' 60th birthday and this was their wild spontaneous event. Years back I dated a girl who would lie compulsively about random things. The first big example, I went to her place. She'd just got Assassin's Creed for the first time and was really getting into the story. Like a week later she was telling me how she'd just discovered her family were related to assassins from Florence. I thought it was a joke, but turns out she was serious. Had changed her surname to something Italian on FB and had already spread the lie about on social media. In my head I was like, I literally watched you play Assassin's Creed last week, but she was gorgeous. Way out of my league. So I put up with this and other crazy shit for another 6 months before I gave up. It's ridiculous that tampon ads aren't banned. The fact they're allowed in public just goes to show that women have too much power. This wasn't in response to a particularly graphic ad that pushed any boundaries, just a generic type about comfort and reliability. Took me a while to realize that he wasn't joking. I'm in Australia, and first heard the news of 9/11 on my morning radio, USA evening. I was stuck in traffic near the army base, and they announced it with sirens. To start off with, I thought it was a comedy sketch that I didn't think was particularly funny, but I had a pretty dark sense of humor, too. Then I realized it was news. Holy shit. Breaking news. People panic buying toilet paper. Me at home. Hahaha. Me at grocery store. Oh wait, you're serious. When I was in college, 2 friends and I went out to a cheap Chinese buffet for a weekday lunch. We were probably not particularly well groomed or dressed at the time. So at a nearby table there a woman and a man having lunch. Both dress in business attire. After they finish, the woman, probably in her 20s, comes over to our table out of nowhere and starts chatting with us, making normal chit chat. Kind of odd, but maybe she's just friendly. All of a sudden she asks, "Do you guys like to duck?" We just looked at each other and laughed nervously because how do you respond to that in this situation? She just stood there, completely serious. I don't even remember what we said to her after that. This was 20 plus years ago. But despite sounding like the beginning of a porno, it was only followed by another round at the buffet, not a gangbang. Back in college, me and a few of my guys would get lunch every Tuesday. Me and 2 of the guys are there as normal and are waiting for our last guy Todd. I start texting Todd and asking him about not being at lunch yet. The other guys start narrating what I should text, so I end up saying, "Matt says get your roly-poly looking ass over here. Steve says that you're the personification of washing your hands and getting your sweater sleeves wet." It goes on like that for a bit. Then Todd calls me directly. He says he can't make it because his grandma died that morning and was headed home to see his family. The look on the other 2 guys' faces when I told them was priceless. Was working a job while in early days of college. It was in a popular American restaurant chain where I had been successful as a host, a cashier, waiter, and member of their retail store for just about a year. I accidentally forgot that I had swapped shifts with someone and missed the shift entirely. But I came in a few hours after it had started to sincerely apologize and let them know I was going home to change and I'd be right back. They brought me to the back and told me I was fired. I laughed at first because the boss was occasionally a bit of a jokester. Then I realized he was serious. To this day it gives me massive anxiety about underperforming in any job I have because I believe I will just be fired for it and they'll move on regardless of my tenure or knowledge. Colleague's wife confronting me on speakerphone. "Are you having an affair with my husband?" My exact response was to roar laughing, managing to offend them both simultaneously. Good job, Geek peeps. My favorite musician is David Hasselhoff. I laughed straight in her face. Mind you, this is 30 years ago, but even then. After a panel discussion, I went to the hotel bar with one of the other panelists to discuss our work. I was 32. She was in her early 60s, I believe. As we drank, she became flirty. I thought it was fun so I went along with it. When she invited me up to her room, I thought she was joking. She wasn't. It was quite awkward when I realized. Oh, which to choose. In middle school I had a habit of putting my foot in my mouth. Once I was in my English teacher's room finishing an assignment after school while she was talking to her parent. I finished and moved toward her desk but stopped near her door so I wouldn't interrupt their conversation. As I was waiting, I could see directly to the girls' bathroom where I saw a boy my age but not a student, small school, pacing in front of the girls' bathroom. I thought it odd and watched for a moment. Each time the door opened, he would peer as best he could into the bathroom, and I knew the JV cheerleaders were in there changing for practice. Alarmed I said, "There's a boy trying to look into the girls' bathroom." The teacher and parent stopped and quickly approached to watch the pacing boy. The parent then said, "That's my son." I started to laugh until I realized I was the only one. It was very awkward for a few moments till she excused herself, gathered her son, and left. The teacher still brings it up when I see her and laughs. For those of you curious of the outcome, he was on the spectrum and his sister, whom he idolized, wasn't there. He was waiting for her to come out. Edit. Grammar. Is there a J in the alphabet? This was a year 12 student. Her name was Judith. Edit. This was in rural Australia. No other languages other than English. No religion. No accent other than Aussie. No other cultural background. I listed my Ford Explorer for sale. A guy emailed me to trade his 2018 Kia Forte or something. I didn't really need one since my fleet already had a 2013 Kia Forte, but he emailed me a few times saying he wants my Explorer but owes money on his Kia. I said how much. He said it's an 8-year finance deal, so need to pay in total $45,000. And he wanted my car. I could buy that car right now for $25, $30K at the dealership brand new. He was dead serious. There's a girl at work who used to call the icing sugar talcum powder. We didn't realize for weeks that she actually thought it was called that. She's actually a pretty switched on girl in general. She just has these weird things. And then they said don't leave your house for 2 weeks. Many years ago I was having the "what are you into sexually?" conversation with a girlfriend. We were at that point in the relationship. It starts vanilla enough and escalates to fetish and kink talk. At one point the conversation went like this: "Would you let me put spaghetti in your dong hole?" I chuckle. Haha, what? No. Thinking her next question would be about something else. What if it was cooked? How the hell would that help? What if it breaks? What if it was something more solid? You're not putting anything in my dong hole. She got very upset and went off about how she needs to be with a sexually explorative and open person. She was legit mad at me because I told her I'm not into getting things stuffed into my coke. Edit. My first award. Thank you, kind stranger. I'm glad the potential plight of my people brought you joy. When GameStop tried to categorize itself as essential business during a global pandemic. There's a healing crystal in my foof. I thought she was joking. But no. Asked her if she believed in it. Not really. I think she realized how silly it was. What a woman, though. When my friend told me she was getting a divorce, I literally laughed and said, "Oh, sure you are." Then I saw her face. Not mine but other half when I proposed to her. I asked. She laughed then said, "Are you serious?" Then when I showed her the ring she realized. In her shock she said yes and has probably regretted it ever since. A coworker was talking about a problem her daughter was having. Coworker was in her late 30s and daughter is about 13-14. Her daughter was conflicted because her best friend since birth, born same day same hospital literally since birth, became friends with a black boy and wants to date this black boy, but God said it's wrong to date outside your race. It isn't natural and it's against God. Black people are fine but they can't date and procreate with white people, it's wrong and a sin. So she is having a spiritual battle on leave her friend or save her friend from this sin. She had me in the first half, then all that racism came out and I couldn't believe it for a moment. Then I remembered, oh yeah, I am in Arkansas. That there were no gay people as well as women didn't start getting emotional before the television was invented and it started showing all that stuff. Also that woman don't get menopause. That's literally how he pronounced it. When I was told my brother got shot. One day my boss asked me if I'd be willing to do some testing for a new software our company had purchased. I already knew the program so I said that was fine. He said I should expect to receive a meeting invite and the next day or so. The next morning I have a meeting invite and I accept. I didn't recognize anyone else who was invited, but assumed that they were from the vendor, which is normal. Time comes for the meeting and it's a dial in sort of deal, which again is normal for this kind of thing. I dial in on time and everyone is saying their hellos and someone asks if I'm on the call. So I say yup, I'm here, and things get started. The call starts with discussing some coding issues, which is fine but has nothing to do with me. So I figure they'll get to the testing stuff in a bit. That is until someone says, "Oh, resting fart face should look into that." At this point it dawns on me, this is not my meeting. So I said, "Sorry guys, but I think you have the wrong person." And there was stunned silence. "Who are you then?" they ask. I give my first and last name, title and location. Then someone starts laughing. This was the person who sent the meeting invite. They were trying to invite 2 other people to the meeting, one with the same first name as me and one with the same last name. Instead, he invited me, and apparently I sound just like one of those people, so no one suspected anything until I spoke up. I was taking a long leg cast off a kid about 2.53 years old. After I get the cast split open and pull it off, mother says, "Oh, his toe fell off." I'm like, "Hep, nice one." The kid was in the cast because his small toe had been nearly amputated and reattached. The doc was hoping what tissue was still connected would be enough to vascularize the distal portion. It wasn't and the kid's toe died and fell off. I had an ex-girlfriend try to claim that we were common law married so she could sue for alimony in my house, despite not being together for a year, not living in the same home for any length of time, not sharing our financial situations with one another in the slightest, no shared bills, no joint account, etc. The basis for this was that I found it funny when friends joked that we were like an old married couple and I didn't immediately clarify the situation to them. So that meant I'd accepted my role as a husband, took a few court dates and she walked away disappointed, while I walked away with my legal fees and a little extra. I could have gone after her harder, but just what my lawyer got probably wiped out most of her savings and maxed out her line of credit, so I'd have been paying my lawyer to try to wring blood out of a stone. The gal we rented our apartment from very seriously said, "There is one thing I need to warn you about." We were ready for anything after this somber statement. "The last people who lived here say the apartment is haunted." We laughed and said, "Haha, you got us. You sounded so serious at first." She stared at us blankly. She totally meant it. Yesterday my mother called to tell me that she thinks I have the coronavirus. I have seasonal allergies and no symptoms related to the virus. BTW. She then proceeded to tell me that scientists discovered the virus cannot live over 133 degrees Fahrenheit. At first I got excited that a breakthrough had been made and thought maybe I missed the news announcement. Then she said, "Yeah, so they are saying if you plug in a hairdryer and keep breathing in the hot air it will kill the virus and you will be fine." I immediately started cracking up because I thought she had made a joke. Then she got very offended and said it was a real scientific video she saw on Facebook. Fassapum. My friend told me she was an anti-vaxxer. At the age of 18, my brother found out chipmunks weren't baby squirrels on a car ride. I used it against him at his wedding. Whoa, you made it to the end? You're a ducking beast. I'll cut you a deal. Smash like and subscribe for more curated content, bruh. It's free and that's a great price.